So if
Yeah.
BDS bothers you, and to a certain extent,
Aspects of it bother me. Yeah.
what aspects would you separate this from? Because there's a lot of parallels, and there's a lot of narratives trying to create parallels between the BDS movement and the anti-apartheid movement.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line between this tactic that BDS is using?
Well, I mean, all historical metaphors are imperfect. There are a few ways in which that draws that the BDS strikes me as being very different, which again I know upset. I mean, some people disagree.
Hmm.
I respect those who do, but I do disagree. I think one major difference is when you look at apartheid and you look at the African National Congress, the ANC. It was pro apartheid, right? It thought that the leadership thought that that was the way towards a solution. When you look at Palestinian leadership, and I do want to point out that much of Palestinian leadership is very unpopular amongst Palestinians. This is true. But when you look at Palestinian leadership, it is not in favor of this, right? Almost uniformly. There's going to be exceptions, and there are exceptions, but including both representatives from the Palestinian Authority and also people like Ayman Odeh, a major Palestinian-Israeli Knesset member, a parliament member. There is a significant sentiment amongst the Palestinian, it tends to be the elite world, and again, a lot of people think that those elites are out of touch, but there does tend to be a sentiment that says that BDS is a way to avoid negotiation, to avoid moving towards a two-state solution. That's one difference. There is I mean, the other difference, and this is the part that gets people really twisted up, and is when you look at apartheid South Africa. I think that it's very easy to look at the narrative that says the oppressor and the oppressed and the sort of the thief and the stolen from is cleaner. It depends if you think that Israel is the ancestral home of the Jewish people and that the Jewish people have the right to national sovereignty and autonomy. And if you do, it's much messier than the case of South Africa.
Yeah.
That's a difference. Again, it's like a very long conversation to spell out.
Yeah.
I mean, those come to mind. I mean, the real ultimate difference that I would put forth is that I am a believer that as impossible as the two-state solution looks, it is still the best answer, or maybe the worst answer, except for all the other answers. And that when it came to South Africa, there was a solution that the apartheid movement worked towards, and I happen to believe that the solution that has the best chance of returning the most rights and giving the greatest justice to the Palestinian people is actually not being pushed towards by BDS. I am willing to be humble about this and say I might be wrong. But I think that there's a debate to be had, and I think that Palestinians have that debate, Israelis have that debate, Americans have that debate.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was parallel with South Africa.
This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do, Matt. I want to invite you back, and I'm going to reach out to a couple of my friends who are actually a part of the BDS movement. And I also want to bring in some voices like Rania Kalik from the Electronic Intifada, and really just kind of have a conversation, right? Because at this point, as long as people are willing to have the conversation and make and consider some things, we can actually flesh out, at least for our circle, right? we're not going to fix anything on an international scale, but in this context, we can actually have some meaningful dialogues that aren't being held.
Yeah, no, I think that this is really important. I mean, I think that I can probably tie that back into the Cuomo discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons why it's really unlikely that you see a lot of pushback against this particular movement, this particular decision, is that while there is certainly significant, if small, but a significant amount of support for Palestinian rights, even in the progressive world, there is a pretty fervent debate as to whether or not BDS is moving in the right direction. And I think you're absolutely right. It's a debate we should have, but even the progressive world is not likely to feel very comfortable
having that debate.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I mean, it's very difficult, right? And so, in some ways, Cuomo, why did he do this on this issue? Well, one, he's got cover when it comes to BDS.
Yeah.
he can get away with it, particularly because even people who are on the left, many, if it were a decision which was directly against, let's say, the two-state solution, right? If Cuomo wanted to say anybody who was for the two-state solution, was for Palestinian sovereignty, is banned from whatever, then people would get up and scream.
Yeah.
The Jewish center and the Jewish left would get up and scream. But when he bans BDS, it's much less comfortable. Which isn't to say that maybe that's wrong. Maybe we need to have that discussion. But as it stands,
Or do you mean that it's much more comfortable for him to get away with that, right?
Because, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I was sort of reversing the positions. Yeah, he can get away with that. There's basically no cost, because not only, of course, the Israeli right and the American right and sort of the blindered Zionists are going to be against BDS, but even people. Some people who consider themselves really pro-Palestinian are also against BDS.
Yeah.
And take my word. You can look at Noam Chomsky. You can look at any number of figures who have progressive or left-leaning credentials without question. But they also disapprove of BDS. And disapprove might be wrong. I don't think Chomsky would say he disapproves. I think he doesn't think it's going to be effective, which is a slightly different idea.